Good morning. Rachel Remen, in one of her exquisite stories in Kitchen Table Wisdom, is about an experience with doctors and their inability to, how alone they feel and how isolated they often feel in their hearts. She talks about, one time she talks about a couple physicians who are partners in a business. They've been together for 20 years. And each of them have reached a point where they're despondent and blue and discouraged and about burnout. And so they come to see her, to counsel with her, each of them separately. The other one doesn't know anything about the fact that either any of them are coming to see Rachel. And they come week after week and they describe their issues. And they begin to discuss about how lonely they are and how nobody in the office wants to care for them. And finally, as she's talking to them, she keeps asking them, why don't you talk to your partner? You've been with him for 20 years. Why don't you talk with him about your loneliness, about your being isolated, about your despondency? Why don't you talk to him about it? And each of them would say continuously, no, not him. He'd never hear me. He wouldn't care. You see how we are? We're so isolated in ourselves sometimes that we don't see the value in others. In this same sequence, she talks about an experience where she's working with doctors who work with cancer patients, oncologists, and they're together and they're talking about the same issue, how they feel isolated from their patients and how they feel isolated from their peers, and they're despondent and they're discouraged. And one man is, in describing his discouragement, Rachel always had a sandbox in her office, and she had different figures, and he went to the sandbox and he took a shark and he put a shark at the end and he identified the shark as the disease, and then he took some wounded people, dolls as they were, and he put them in the middle, and they were real close together. One of them had exposed issues in the physical, in their stomach. Others had a mistake, had lost an arm, and they were all maimed, and they were together, and they were together. And then he took a Kachina doll, and he put it at the other end, and the Kachina doll was in such a place that the Kachina doll could see the shark, but he could see the people in the group, but the Kachina doll couldn't. The wounded couldn't see the Kachina doll. And he said, as he had this, he talked about it, and he said that he was the Kachina doll. He was the one to bring healing, and the shark was out there, and the people were sitting together in loneliness. And then they asked him to describe it. What did that name it? Name the picture. And he said, alone, alone. And they talked about that feeling of being alone and how he was isolated. And after he began to discuss it a little more, he went over to the sandbox and he picked up the Kachina doll. And he put the Kachina doll in the circle with the other wounded. And he said, I'm one of the wounded. Now that could bring healing. And the same for some of us. We're lonely, we're wounded, and we're not willing to let other people know about our wounds. And so we carry them ourselves when other people are carrying wounds, and we together could learn to carry each other's wounds. I'm praying that God will help us to do that today. God bless you.